Hi, welcome to Gilboys workshop. Come on through to the studio here where you can see me restoring our next project. As you can see, this is a antique. It is an Edwardian, or just maybe a bit later, children's desk. It's from my daughter, and we picked it up off of Gumtree. I think it was £50. It was an absolute bargain. And I'm going to strip it down and refinish it. And you could ask why. Well, it's just a little bit too orange and the finish is all a bit patchy. It has been stripped in the past, it was much darker, but there is also some repairs that I want to do to this. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with our delightful desk is carry out the repairs. And on this one, we've got a number of things to sort out. Got loose handles here, which are quite easy to repair because they are screwed in, and the dovetail joints on it have also gone. I have got a hammer here, but I was going to say you don't really need it. So these are machine dovetails that just the glue's just gone on them really, if they were glued in the first place. So I have here some hot melt glue, some scotch glue or pearl glue, and we're going to repair it. This is traditional glue used for centuries, this type of thing, and it's a reversible glue. So I'm going to dribble a little bit of glue onto these joints. I'm going to take each one of the drawers out, and when I finish gluing them up, as I do each one, I'm going to pop it back in to where it came from, so it sets in the right position. It only needs to be there probably for about 20 minutes, if that, because you know the actual strength is in the drawer itself, not the glue. And then we'll move on to the next stage of repairs. You can see here the original colour that this desk was, which was quite a dark brown really, that sort of muddy brown colour it once was. And yeah, let's do the rest. the drawers have been in here for about half an hour or so now. We can take them out. They're going to be set in the right place. Actually, I don't know, for the more observant of you there, you saw on the back of these drawers, there was two drawers numbered 3. So you take your pick, really. I don't know quite what happened there. Anyway, we'll take them out. And we'll look at these drawer dividers, which you can see are a little loose. And you can see here with these drawer dividers, they've been nailed. There's a nail there, or a very small screw, that's buried deep into the wood, which is going through the tenon. And another one here, and here, yeah, there are. So typical of Edwardian furniture that was mass produced, or late Edwardian furniture, sometimes you get hinges which just got 2 screws, but it should have had 3. They glued it and they just nailed it, and then sometimes where they've missed the nail, that's where it's loose. I'm not going to nail it, I'm just going to inject glue in. I'm going to use this syringe. It's the same hot melt glue we were just using. I'm going to suck up some glue and inject it directly into the joint, and then we're going to cramp it up. This is the same technique we will use on veneer work. I mean, we didn't necessarily need a hypodermic needle to get into those joints, but it just made it easier, really. And keeping it in some hot water keeps the glue nice and loose, ready for us to inject. But I'll leave that now. Oh, start to move. We'll leave that overnight, come back to this, and then we'll go to the next stage of repair. Perfect, that's done. So next job is to sort out these drawer guides that are running back here that have quite severely worn. Now, one way to tell if your drawers are wearing on the drawer guides here, or drawer runners, is when you get to this point here, if the drawer steps up, then your drawer guides are probably wearing away. They're not too bad on this one, but I know on a couple of these drawers, it steps up. It hits and steps up. So that's one way of telling if your drawers and drawer runners guides are worn. Anyway, right. Let's ping them out. You see how worn this is. If I flip this over, there's our new drawer guide. So I'm not going to replace the wood. I'm just going to turn this over, literally flip it over, and I might even use the same nails with a little bit of glue, and that way we're not compromising any of the original wood, putting new wood in there. It's the original wood. So it's a really good way of repairing drawer guides. If you can, get the old ones out, turn them over and put them back in again. It's typical really, because what you end up with is the drawers sit back on themselves as well, and you can see that on chest of drawers. You can see, I've seen many times at auctions and in people's houses, and the way you see it is because the actual drawer itself, instead of sitting nice and square to the face, it drops back a bit like that. And you see the drawers sitting back on themselves inside, and that's another sign the drawer runners have gone, as well as that jumping up and down. The other sign of wear is actually on the drawers themselves, the side of the drawers here and here wear down. And a way of repairing that is by not touching the drawer side, but just placing another piece of wood in here and planing that down to size, so then it sits and glides on the runners in there on the edge of it. So you've got two ways of doing it. The drawers on this one aren't too bad at all. As per usual when you're restoring furniture, it's always the unexpected things that catch you out. You think you've got everything. And if you see in here, I don't know if you come over here and have a look. You can see there, maybe come through this angle, there's a beautiful little shot there of what lies beneath. You can see those nails in there. So, and the Edwardians were brilliant at doing this. They would put nails everywhere, and it makes it so difficult for us restorers. It takes twice as long to repair. But there you go. Let's carry on. PVA glue. Here you can see that somebody else, when this was restored, I don't know how long ago, and they stripped the old colour off, they obviously did some restoration, because there's some white PVA glue in there as well, which is a sort of a big no-no when it comes to restoring furniture, because it's non-reversible. Once it's glued, that's it. Right, enough moaning. Stop moaning. Ian, stop moaning.
I'm not moaning.
I'm trying to work out whether it's worth splitting this again and joining it back up, or I should just leave it as it is. As you can see, if I hold it there, can you see that step that's there. I'll bring it in there maybe. So there is a step on it that I think it's part of the character of it. It's been joined really badly, and the chances are this has been joined with PVA glue, which is a whole load of work for me to just split this so it straightens it up, and it's just not really necessary. So I'm going to leave that, and we'll rejoin the back here, which has obviously let go, and then we'll put it back on again. Right. So the top's off. I want to rejoin this oak board up with this one here, and to do that I'm going to use a biscuit jointer, which is basically like a modern mortise and tenon, really, I suppose. What it does, well, you'll see what it does rather than me explain it. Let's do it. So these have been here for the weekend, our fire extinguishers. There is still a very slight gap here on the top. I mean, ideally I would like to have put this through a saw and got those faces absolutely perfectly smooth. But again, it's an antique, it's got character, patina, but that leaf is lovely and secure. Now let's get on with the rest of the restoration. Now for this section here, where there were some inkwells, what I'm going to do is reinstate the yoke here, the decorative piece that was taken, the fill piece that was here. And then I'm going to make good this area here, and I'll probably use some dope colours using my pigments and sort of fake grain this area back into being oak, even though it is oak, but obviously it's stained with ink. So I've placed the original piece of repair oak back into here using the scotch glue or the pearl glue, and used it as a contact adhesive rather than nailing it back. There's no use nailing it at all. Just contact adhesive, glued in, perfect. If I wanted to get that out again, I could steam that out. That's stripped quite well, really. In the past, I was never a huge fan of these water-based strippers, but now they seem to have come on leaps and bounds, and they do work really, really well. I'm going to carry on the same process as you just seen me do there, applying it with the brush, and then wooling it off as well. I'm going to do this 3 times using the stripper, the steel wool, 3 times over the whole thing, which we'll probably do in a sort of a sped up, I would have said, but let's get on. This is a cabinet scrape that cabinet makers use for planing and smoothing off of wood. It's been a great tool in the armoury of a French polisher for removing excess waste material when stripping. It's just a really versatile tool. It's just a piece of steel with a burr edge on it, but it's brilliant at scraping off the excess. So we've skipped forward a few hours, actually it's a few days in truth, to get to this stage you can see us at now. The water-based stripper that I was trialling there, it was another one that was sent to me, wasn't any good whatsoever. It was a disaster. What happened was I left it on overnight because it wasn't working that well for me. I thought, well, it will stay overnight. And I came back in the next morning to test it. And what it had done is released the stain, which was covering the furniture here, and it soaked into the wood itself. The wood had swollen up. It wouldn't strip. I tried scrubbing it with wire wool. It didn't really work very well. And then I actually ended up scraping off the finish using a chisel. And I spent hours and hours doing that, and it still wasn't successful. So to give you an example, what I was left with once I'd stripped it off using the chisel. So this is what I've done now, but that is what it looks like when I'd spent hours and hours on it. Now you might have experience of this. If so, please do say so in the comments below on this video. It was awful. So what I tried to do, I thought, well, let's get sandpaper on it. And what happened, when I got the sandpaper on, it clogged up the sandpaper. It just clogged it up. It was a right mess. And so the only way I could get round it was going back to the old faithful dichloromethane stripper, which you lot really can't buy unless you've got a license for it. It's professional use only. And I started stripping using the dichloromethane, and it worked instantly. So really, I mean, this stuff did it, well, so much quicker. So much quicker. It was unbelievable. It was a few hours work, and I've stripped off everything, and I've sanded everything nearly. At the point now, I'm just going to do this. I'll show you how I did this panel. And well, here's another example. Here's the drawer. That's the water-based stripper, and that's me stripping with dichloromethane. Now, I'm not saying the water-based stripper is completely rubbish. It didn't work for me on this task, and Had I not had the dichloromethane, I don't know what I've done actually. I'd had to dry out the wood somehow and then spent hours and hours sanding it weeks later. So it'd be interesting to see if any of you have had the same problem and how you've got round it. I'd be interested to know. It's easy for me, like I say, I had the powerful stuff. So I'm going to carry on stripping. As you can see, I've also dismantled the whole thing. It was a lot easier to do. I just thought, you know, you start off these processes and you think, you know, I'm just going to do this quickly. It'll be okay. It's a small desk. You know, it's easier just to dismantle the whole thing and get into it properly and do it right. So I've got this drawer to do at the back of that panel, and then we'll move on to the next stage. One other thing I was going to mention is in the process of using the water-based stripper, I did use steel wool to strip, the coarse steel wool to strip it off. And because it remained wet on the surface, I did get that black spotting reaction on the drawers, just on the drawers only. It was nowhere else. It was a bit strange, but it did. And I've stripped these, the majority of it's gone. There is a little bit left on this one, but I'm hoping actually as we go on, the next process of using oxalic acid will also help get rid of those black spotting marks that some of you have experienced as well. Just one more thing before we move on. Ian just asked a really good question. Again, we get asked this a lot. Why are we bothering to use stripper in the first place? Why don't you just get stuck in with the sandpaper and be done with all the mess? Well, there are a number of reasons. The first reason is if you were to use sandpaper alone, it gets clogged up really, really quickly. And you think, okay, use a mechanical one. Great, use a mechanical one. It will get clogged up really quickly. And also you'll cut right into the wood. In places you'll go back, you'll sand, nice flat areas, be brilliant. Awkward areas you can't get into very well. And you'll end up with a patchy finish on the wood, and you'll go through reams of paper trying to do it, and you'll probably give up. The other reason for not using a mechanical sander or just sanding through, especially in the world of antiques and vintage furniture, is we want to keep the patina. Really, you want to keep that patination. You want to remove the finish, definitely, but you want to keep that dings and dents and marks and some of the character marks, sort of what you like in antiques, what we love in antique furniture. So that's the other reason we don't go hell for leather with sandpaper, especially on antiques. If you want to do it on modern furniture, give it a go. But I mean, I've seen it so many times where people use mechanical sander and it goes on and on and on and on, and you're stripping it back and you can't quite get it right. So this is why we use a stripper. Having said that, disaster with the water-based one I've just been using, it's been horrific. But you know, we learn and we move on. Anyhow, also, just while I'm here, just to show you a reminder of what we had before. There's the back of it. That's the original finish, probably from, on the early part of the 20th century when this was made, sort of early 1900s. That's the original colour still there. It was stripped off, I don't know when it was stripped off, and refinished what it was before. But we're coming to this sort of finish now, which will darken when I start waxing it, but just as a reminder.